no, oh, sorry, are we ready to start?
We just need about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we're ready to go. You may start.
Good. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Foster, and I'm the chair of the Board of Directors of TO Live. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I would like to call meeting 14 of the Board of Directors of TO Live to order. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology, with members and staff calling in or connecting by video conference or attending in person at Toronto City Hall. Because we are meeting remotely, we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. Members of the public can observe the meeting on YouTube. I would like to request that all staff keep their video turned off unless they need to speak or answer questions. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate on each item and during votes. I also ask that all members and staff keep their microphones on mute unless you need to answer a question or speak. If any members do wish to speak on an item, I ask that you wait until staff have presented. I will then ask if any members wish to ask questions of staff or to speak. If you do, please ensure your video is on and raise your hand, or unmute your mic and indicate your intention to speak, and I will create the speaker's list. When voting on an item or motion, I ask that members make sure that your video is turned on and raise your hand to indicate your vote. I'll now ask Steve Levitan to provide the land acknowledgement. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the board would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and currently the Mississaugas of the New Credit. We acknowledge these nations and all other Indigenous nations, including the Métis, who have called the land on which Toronto is built home. We're grateful to have the opportunity to live, learn, and create on this land together.
Thank you, Steve. By the way, it was Steve's suggestion that different members of the board give the land acknowledgement at each meeting, which I think is an excellent suggestion. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the TO Live board meeting on June 23, July 10, 2020, and August 5, 2020. Someone so move, please. Thank you, Kathleen. Seconder. Thank you, Kevin. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor, contrary minded, approved. Thank you. We have 10 items on the agenda. We will consider the items that do not require closed session consideration. We are going to go in closed session, actually, sorry. There will be a closed session on a number of the items for various reasons that will be apparent. And so we'll move forward then. The first item is CT 14.1, President and Chief Executive Officer, General Status Update. I will ask the President and CEO Clyde to give us an update on his report. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the board members and to the public that are joining us today. I appreciate your time and your interest in the arts in Toronto. I'm going to begin my update in public, and I also am going to begin with, believe it or not, something positive. We have, well, almost. We have now passed the 6-month period for COVID-19. That's the almost positive news, not really positive, but you will find from the staff perspective today that our approach to many of the items on the agenda is about recovery, reopen, and renew. That is the new pivot that we would like to focus the company into after our response to COVID-19. And I think you're going to see many items which I look forward, and we are really interested in the board's input on all of them, to the items that we have presented to you today on to fit into those categories: recovery, reopen, and renew. So the report you have before you is actually in the second quarter of this year, getting out of the positive notes. The second quarter, you remember, is exactly when COVID-19 hit. I want to thank the entire team and the board for all of your help throughout this period. The senior management team did what I believe is an excellent job at pivoting on a dime on March 13th to respond to the COVID-19 crisis when we lost essentially over 80% of our revenue overnight. We managed our finances, we managed our institution, we managed our health and safety, we managed our people, and we have brought ourselves into a state where we are now into our emergency budget, which the board is aware of. Now, moving forward, we're focused on many things, some things that we began in the past, and some things that are renewed efforts. You'll notice that in my update, which I hope everybody read, at least the CEO portion of the update, that we have begun and formulated our Equity and Inclusion Committee. More on that later in 14.2. We are very focused on the Digital Transformation Committee, which you'll get an update from our chair, our wonderful chair, Gabe, who held a fantastic meeting on Monday this week. You'll also hear a little bit of our development work. We've been expanding our donor base. I actually got a text just a few minutes ago from Sandra, who let me know that we've actually had a wonderful morning. So we should thank all of the people who have donated to us this morning even and become new donors to TO Live. Without them, we really could not do the work that we're doing. And it is really about the public, so thank you. And then at this stage, I have a few positive notes to give, but because they are partnerships and they are not yet announced, I need to move into camera. So if I can turn to the clerk, it would be great if we could move into an in-camera session.
Right. I would move that the Board of Directors of TO Live recess its public session to meet in closed session to consider the item as it relates to positions, plans, procedures, criteria, or instructions to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the city or local board. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Steve. Discussion, all those in favor, contrary?
Mr. Chair, just one question. Are we going into private just for this one item, or it's to be private for items?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just need a moment to close the YouTube feed, and we will let you know when we're in closed session.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, you may proceed.
Thank you. May I have a motion to receive the report for information that was presented by the CEO? Thank you, Jillian. Seconder. Thank you, Kathleen. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is CT 14.2, Plan for Equity Training Background. And I would like to turn that over to Clyde, if I may.
Thank you to the chair. I'm going to assume that the board has had time to review the materials, and I also want to recognize that I have given a verbal update about these materials previously, and since we have a long agenda, I'll try to keep this brief and then take any questions if people have around it. I do want to re-stress that from TO Live Management's perspective, we understand that this is a long journey, and also we want to recognize in no way do we believe that our journey is complete or that we're perfect at it. So what you have before you is really meant to just give you an outline of what the company has done to date and put a sort of stake in a timeline process that we believe is a very long process. I also want to stress that if you looking at research from outside as well, you'll notice that changing culture in an organization is an incredibly difficult thing, and it takes many, many years to do that. We are, again, on a multi-year journey. We started it several years ago, and I'll just give you a sense of where we are currently. So just a reminder, when we came together, equity and diversity and the power of diversity in the city of Toronto was what we anchored the entire company of TO Live on. Those people who were on the board several years ago in our retreat that we took to create our mission vision statements and our values knew that that was embedded into the very culture and into the very mission statement that we had. It was the culture that we wanted to create. Then we pivoted very quickly from that to change the policies, which was almost a year in the making. We worked on the policies with city management, the city manager's office, the Office of Equity. All the policies were passed then also through the board and approved. And then the next phase was to do training, and that phase began last year in earnest and was to continue through this year. And training is something that is almost never complete. It's something that you are constantly doing, particularly because we have turnover in staff, and you always want to raise the bar of the way you deal with equity and inclusion in the company that you're working on. I want to stress that we're sort of at the very beginning of that training phase. So stresses and issues that we may face today, they're also part of this journey that we're on, and we look at them as learning opportunities and ways to improve. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. At that point, where we are today is to continue that training. I know that you have tangentially met one of our inclusion and equity training people, consultants from outside, Kika Ojo, who we recommended to the board. She has been engaged on a multi-year process with us, has begun a wonderful, wonderful process, and we look forward to continuing that both during COVID-19 and when we get back in person. We also were doing training on inclusion for disabilities, people with different BIPOC communities, and Indigenous training, and all of that training will continue over the next many years. We also just recently launched the beginning of our internal committee on diversity and inclusion. That committee will have its first report to the board, which will report directly to the HR committee of the board at the HR committee in November. I believe the HR committee is it's either late October or November, but that's the first time, and we're very excited about that committee. It has been constituted, it's building its membership, and it'll build its goals and objectives. It has also got a designated time for contract with Kika to work with her as an outside consultant to assist them in the training and equity through the company. So that's my update today, and I'm happy to take any questions that people might have around that.
Thank you, Clyde. I might draw the board's attention to the TO Live Employment Policies and Initiative timeline that is part of the report on all of this, which starts in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and sets out all the steps that our management team has and is taking to properly confront and deal with the issues of equity and inclusion. So this is not a new agenda item for TO Alive. It is something that we have been working on diligently for an extended period of time. And I think with some good, solid forward progress. And on that, I would say thank you to Clyde and the management team for the way you have diligently been pursuing this. Beyond that, I would ask if there are any questions of Clyde on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. No. I think, if I give me 1 second, please, board. I'd like to have a motion to receive the report from the CEO on a plan for equity training. And then I'd like us to, well, once again, if I may propose that we go into closed session. So first, could we have a motion to accept the report?
Mr. Chair, it's Carol here.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, I just wanted to clarify, you don't need the motion to receive if you're going to hold it down and go into closed session on this item later in the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you put on the screen a motion for a closed session, please?
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, did you want to go into closed session on multiple items at this point or just on item 2?
Item 2.
Just on item 2. Okay, we'll display the motion.
Maybe, sorry, what, the purpose for that? Is it, there's no confidential?
Carol, are you posting?
It's on its
Sorry,
way.
Mr. Chair, can you give us it's Paula, can you give us the reason or what are we discussing in close? Thank you.
The same topic, Councillor.
Okay,
Equity training.
for the staff. Sorry.
We'll discuss it in closed session if we may.
Yep.
Thank you. Motion that the Board of Directors at T5 recess its public session to meet in closed session to consider the items as it relates to positions, plans, procedures, criteria, or instructions to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the city or local board. So move. Is there a seconder, please?
Take it down. Go.
Thank you, Gary. Discussion? Those in favor? Contrary? Approved. We'll wait to go in closed session.
Okay, we just need a moment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we are back in public session. You may proceed.
Thank you. Next item is CT 14.3, St. Lawrence Center redevelopment, launch of public consultation.
Mr. Chair, I believe there's a motion arising out of the item we were just dealing with.
Fine.
And I'm going with the wording that the clerk's prepared,
We can
and I'd
put,
like a recorded vote.
we can put that on the screen for you.
Motion proposed by Councillor Filion that the chair call a special meeting of the board to consider advice from the city manager that was requested in item CT 12.1, and the city manager provide information to and attend the meeting. Is there a seconder for it? Sorry, could I see the screen again?
Don't need a seconder.
Mr. Chair, a recorded vote was asked for. Would you like me to call the names, or did you want to proceed with that?
No, could you do that, please?
Will do. All in favor of the motion by Councillor Filion. Councillor Crawford.
Not in support?
So that's a no.
That's a no.
Okay. Councillor Filion.
In favor?
Councillor Fletcher.
In favor?
Paul Bernards.
Against.
That was a no.
That's the word no.
Okay. Kevin Garland. I think you're muted, Kevin.
No,
Your vote is no.
yeah, it's no.
Okay. Steve Levitan.
In favor?
Could you repeat that?
I'm in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Gabriel Michon.
He's had to leave.
Oh, he's left? Okay.
That's Steve Levitan. I'm just noticing that Gabe has left the meeting.
Thanks. Thanks. I'm looking at my list. Kathleen Sharp, your vote?
No.
And Jillian Smith?
No.
And Mr. Chair?
No.
The motion does not carry. It's 3 in favor and 6 against and 1 absent.
Thank you. Move on then. Item CT 14.3.
Mr. Chair, you should get a motion on item 2 to dispose of it, to receive for information, unless there's some other action required.
No. Also move. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded, approved. Thank you. May I proceed then, Carol, with 14.3?
Ready to move on. Thank you.
Thank you. CT 14.3, St. Lawrence Center Redevelopment, launch of public consultation. There was a letter from the St. Lawrence Center Redevelopment Committee. I'll ask the chair, Kevin Garland, to provide an update. Please, Kevin.
Well, essentially, as I think everyone knows, we were asked not to start the public consultation by the mayor's office, and we absolutely understand why. They don't want the Lawrence Center redevelopment to become a big issue when the city's in such difficult financial circumstances. So we're some impatience waiting for the opportunity to get started. We had hoped to start that process in the early summer, and of course, it was over. But I guess we're awaiting the entire city's recovery program, which hopefully will unlock our ability to start this. A lot of work has gone on behind the scenes, and I think I've mentioned, certainly the committee knows that we are attempting to recruit, as Gabe did for the Digital Transformation Committee, a more diverse group of people to sit on the redevelopment committee. at the request of our last meeting, we went to the city manager's office, particularly to the I don't know what it's called, but it's the HR department. And we received some good names there. We've also sourced some other names. And we're just in the process of, with help from the committee, other members of the committee, reaching out to try and find people who will not be on necessarily be on our board, but will sit on that committee. People who would represent the diversity of our city and also have a skill set in architecture or theater or redevelopment or real estate, so that we can make the committee's deliberations much richer and more productive. I think that's really all I have to say. I don't know. I'm sure Leslie's on the line. I don't know whether you want to add anything, Leslie.
Leslie? No? Leslie, are you there?
I don't know. Maybe she's not. Maybe Clyde. I don't know if there's anything Clyde wants to add.
Hi there. No, I think that was a wonderful update. Thank you. We're looking forward to starting when everyone is ready.
Great.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any comments on that? Kevin, you're moving a motion to adopt the committee's recommendation as received.
Yes, thank you.
All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. Thank you very much. Our next item is CT 14.4, Digital Transformation Project Update. There is a staff report, which again, I assume everybody's had the opportunity to review, with a confidential attachment along with a letter from the Digital Transformation Committee. Gabe has had to depart. Clyde, would you be kind enough to fill in and bring us up to date?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will, and I'll try to be brief because I know we have little time. Knowing that everybody will have read the report, we had a wonderful meeting on Monday with the Digital Transformation Committee. I want to thank again the external board members or the external committee members who were able to join us. Their help is invaluable and wonderful for us to move forward. We're in a great position at this stage under the digital transformation. We are considering awarding the RFP. The question that we had before the committee was very specific. It was about different types of technology. They gave us wonderful feedback along that line, and we are able to move forward with that information. Our internal committee, which is considering the RFP, will meet probably next week or the week after, and then the award will happen. I can't stress to the board that obviously this is one of the more critical things to the company. Changing the company to include all the digital assets that we need to use to improve both the website, the way we interact with our customers, and especially now in light of our new award, which I just mentioned in camera to you earlier. It will lift the entire system, I hope, and really this digital transformation, as I've said to other people, is not just for us. It's for the entire arts community in Toronto, because all the people who use our spaces that sell their tickets through us will get lifted by this digital transformation. So a wonderful investment by DO Live.
Fantastic. It is. Carol, there's a motion that is proposed. Can you post that motion?
We'll put that on the screen for you, Mr. Chair. This is the recommendation from the committee.
Yes. That the Board of Directors of TO Live, 1, request the President and Chief Executive Officer TO Live, upon selection of a digital vendor, to report to the Board of Directors of TO Live on a resource plan, scope of work and budget for services. 2, direct that confidential attachment 1 to the report, August 20, 2020, from the President and Chief CEO, TO Live, remain confidential in its entirety, as it contains positions, plans, procedures, criteria, or instructions to be applied to any negotiations carried on by or on behalf of the city or local board. So I will so move. And may I just support Clyde's comments. We are very fortunate to have the number of people who have volunteered and served on our digital transformation committee led by Gabe. They really are a world-class team, And I know Clyde and his management group are hugely appreciative of their help. Any further discussion on this topic? All those in favor? Contrary minded?
Just a sec, I just have a clarification on the motion I want to raise. The first item of the motion, I'm assuming that's interpreted to mean that the CEO's report as to scope, resources, and budget follow the selection of a potential candidate under the RFP, but before any contracts are entered. Am I right in taking that reading?
Clyde?
I'm sorry, Steve, it was kind of hard to hear you. Can you just ask the question one more time?
I know there's road work going on right outside my window. I'll try and speak up. I'm assuming that the intent of the first item in the motion is that your report come back to us after you've selected a potential candidate and determined scope of work, resource, and budget, but before anybody is actually contracted legally. So that we get to look at and approve the scope, resources, and budget before we're under contract with them.
Yeah, if I may, I'm part of that committee, and that was the direction we gave to management, that the committee meeting allowed management to understand the direction to go in, and that would narrow then which vendor fit that direction. But before they started going in the direction beyond that, they would come with a scope of work and a budget and a plan, and that's what the contractor would work on.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear.
Sorry, I was also just checking with legal counsel on the process, which is why I had a pause there for a moment. I just wanted to double check what we were allowed under the RFP process, but thank you, Paul. I think you're right.
And I mean, it was kind of a weird meeting because the RFP is in place, so there was a lot of details we weren't allowed to have. So all we could really provide was broad overview and direction, and then instructions on how to move forward. But we couldn't get into the real details because the RFP is still live. So, and we successfully navigated that minefield.
Good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Clyde? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Contrary minded, approved. Thank you. Next item is CT 14.5 cybersecurity update. There's a staff report with a confidential attachment along with a letter from the audit committee. I'll ask the committee chair, Paul Bernards, to provide an overview. Paul.
Yeah, so we met on this during the audit committee meeting. It was a brief discussion because the report from management was that we're having no cybersecurity issues at this time. Not surprising given the substantially reduced activity going on, but they continue on their efforts. We agreed to bifurcate this committee, this exercise on cybersecurity and leave within the audit committee the focus on risk mitigation and move to the digital transformation committee the items that deal with the technological side and opportunities and advancements on the technology side to be considered, because we didn't feel that the audit committee really had the expertise to deal with the technical piece, but we certainly have the expertise to deal with the risk profile and the like. So, and management will split it out accordingly for the next meeting.
Okay.
If I may, to the chair and to the chair of the audit committee, post that, we also want to point out to the board that that would be a change of scope for the digital transformation committee, and so we'd have to address that item before we made the change to the reporting structure.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to send a message to him. I thought I'd be available for a conference call, which I'm obviously not. So cybersecurity, there's a motion. Would the clerk be kind enough to post that? Carol, is the motion coming?
It's on its way, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Paul, would you like to read the motion since it's yours?
Sure, as soon as it comes up. President and CEO of TO Live recommends that the board of directors of TO Live direct that the confidential attachment 1 remain confidential as it involves security of the property of the board.
Any further discussion or any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Approved. Thank you. Next two items, CT 14-6, 2020 second quarter financial results and commentary, and CT 14-7, 2020 operating facility fee reserve fund and state of good repair budgets, have several confidential attachments and will require a closed session discussion. So unless anyone has any comments or questions for public session, I will hold these down for discussion in closed session.
Mr. Chair, can I just a point of order?
Yeah.
Could you also ask if there are any questions, and we sometimes do, is if any members have any questions in private on these items that we'd be able to go into, but if we don't have any questions in private on these two particular items, we could potentially dispense of them. I'm not suggesting we do that, but I just want, sometimes if we're trying to move a little bit quicker, I'm assuming most of the members would have read this, and if they're fine with it and the recommendations, and that we don't necessarily have to go into private, but only if they have questions. So I'm just putting that out as a suggestion.
Yeah, you're right, Gary. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, would you be kind enough to comment on 14-6, 14-7?
Well, there will be things we wish to discuss, well, at least an update that this should only occur in private session. So I think we need to go into private session at least briefly.
Which is fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. Carol, do we have other things for private session? Yes, we do, actually. You're right. So next item, 14-8, COVID-19 capital improvements at Meridian Hall and Meridian Arts Center. There's a staff report along with a letter from the audit committee with recommendations. I'll turn that over to Committee Chair Paul Bernards to give an overview on the items. Paul
Sorry.
and Clyde.
Sorry, Robert, you broke up there briefly. Update on which item?
14-8, COVID-19 capital improvements.
Oh, right. Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is a new item put forward to the committee. It's an unfunded item, and what it relates to is capital upgrades to the buildings to facilitate an ordinary course return to allowing people into the building to attend events and improve the air quality and the cleanliness of the building and the like. Using UV filters in the air ducts, for example. I don't think we need to go into discuss this in closed session because it's very preliminary, and all the committee recommended was that TO Live not go it alone on this because all other arts organizations and lots of office buildings and city-owned properties all need to consider this sort of technology before they can fully open, and the management should look towards joining forces with other parties and get buying power towards a better effective cost price in order to implement it. I recognize that there's the tendering issue that has to be addressed. So this is just a preliminary discussion, and so it'll have to tie in with the whole how we tender as a city agency. But that was only a recommendation, and it remains unfunded at this time, so it'll come forward in the future for further discussion.
If I may, to the chair, just to add.
Please.
Two things. One, also a part of the, you'll notice part of the motion, or part of the item is to have the board vote so that we can actually apply for a grant to cover these items, so I don't want that to get lost in the discussion. And then I just wanted to add, subsequent to the conversation that happened at audit, which was very valuable, we've already been in touch with economic development at the city, and we've been in touch with the city manager's office, and we're coordinating with them on other items. So thank you very much for the suggestion. Thank you to the city.
Okay. Carol, we have a long motion in front of us.
Yes, this was the decision from the committee, and we do have this one ready. We can put it up now if you're ready for it.
Thank you very much. Paul, would you be kind enough to read your motion?
I thought you were my friend.
Yeah.
That the board director Teal Live direct the president and CEO of Teal Live to work with the city's financial planning department to establish new capital improvement projects at Meridian Hall, Meridian Arts Center, and I assume St. Lawrence Center related to COVID-19, included those detailed in attachment 1, and investigate methods of funding these projects. Direct the president and CEO of Teal Live to apply for funding for the new capital improvement projects at Meridian Hall and Meridian Arts Center related to COVID-19 as detailed attachment 1 through the Canadian Cultural Spaces Fund. Contingent on securing the funding outlined in the recommendations 1 and or 2, approve proceeding with the new capital improvement projects at Meridian Hall, Meridian Arts Center related to COVID-19 as detailed in attachment 1, and all related purchase orders and or tender awards as per Teal Live financial policies 301, 303, and 313, not to exceed the funding secured. Direct the president and CEO, Teal Live, to report back to the board of directors on any outcomes from the above recommendations. Direct the president and CEO of Teal Live to research opportunities for economies of scale and group purchasing options, report back to Teal Live Audit Committee.
Well done.
Very
Are there any questions or discussion? If not,
I have a question. Why would we not include the St. Lawrence Center in the recommendations? Doesn't require us to proceed with the St. Lawrence Center, but we should have the option.
Clyde?
I believe we felt at the time with the redevelopment project under discussion that we were going to focus on Meridian Hall and the Meridian Arts Center, but if the board would like us to also do the research for the St. Lawrence Center, then we can do that research. The staff has no problems doing that.
I guess, Clyde, were you influenced by the fact that we have other plans for the St. Lawrence Center, and your budget is $900,000 for the Sony Center? Meridian Hall.
Yeah, the chair has it exactly correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I totally get that, but other plans may or may not succeed. So to have done the research, I would think, if it's not a huge.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. It was an oversight in terms of when we drafted that I wasn't focused on that all three entities weren't in the wording, but we certainly should at least consider St. Lawrence Center, especially for applying for federal funding.
Right.
For the fun of having Paul reread it, I'm really happy to add back in the St. Lawrence Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Insert St. Lawrence Center in addition to this already read motion.
Good. Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Thank you. Approved. CT 14-9, Meridian Arts Center roof. There is a staff report and a letter from the Audit Committee. I'll turn it over to Committee Chair to give us an overview on the item. Paul, roof.
As part of the state of good repair study, the roof was identified as needing work at some point. That point has come forward somewhat because there are leaks in the roof that need to be addressed. So the proposal is to work to move this from below the line to above the line and funded before it causes serious damage to the building.
Right.
So this. I believe from the conversation, this roof has never been seriously overhauled since this building was built. I guess it was the 90s. And so it's time.
Okay.
And it is in the state of good repair budget. The only thing uncertain was the exact timing, so it's not a new item. It's just a change in timing.
Okay. Carol, we have a motion on that. Can you pop that up for us, please? Or is that included? Paul, so maybe, does that get included in the audit committee report? I think it does.
Mr. Chair, the recommendation in the report is to receive for information.
Okay, all right. Do we need a motion for that then?
Yes, if someone can move that the item be received for information, that's all you need.
Okay, Paul?
Mr. Chair, I move the item be received for consideration. For information, I should say.
Good. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Contrary? Approved. Thank you. CT 1410, we'll hold for closed session. Let's go back to CT 4. No, we don't need that. Sorry, we've done that.
Motion ready for closed session yet? The 3 items?
Right, we need to go into closed session now on, I think,
Mr. Chair, we have, you have item 6, item 7, and item 10 remaining, and those are the 3 you wanted to go in closed session.
okay, 6, 7, and 10. Thank you very much, Carol. So I move we go into recess, a public session to go into closed session on items CT 14, 6, 7, and 10.
Motion's coming on the screen.
Thank you. That the Board of Directors of TO Live recesses public session to meet in closed session to consider the following items: CT 14-6, 2020 second quarter financial results and commentary, 14-7, 2021 operating facility fee reserve fund and state of good repair, as they contain financial information supplied in confidence to the Board of Directors of TO Live, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. And CT 1410, shares update on COVID-19 and TO Live, as it pertains to security of the property of the board and relates to personal information about identifiable individuals. So move, discussion. All those in favor? Contrary? Approved. Thank you. We'll wait to go into private session, closed session. I gotta get myself. Right.
We are back in public session, and just to let you know, we have motions for you on items 6 and 7. They had to be amendments to address the new confidential information that was circulated, to add it in the recommendations.
All right. Do I need you to put that up?
We'll put item 6, the motion, up now.
Okay. That the Board of Directors of TO Live, 1, approve 2020 second quarter financial operating results as noted in confidential attachment 1 to the report, August 17, 2020, from the President and Chief Executive Officer, TO Live. 2, direct the confidential attachment 1, confidential attachment 2, revised confidential attachment 2, September 1, 2020, revised confidential attachment 2, September 3, 2020, and confidential attachment 3, September 1, 2020, and revised confidential attachment 3, September 3, 2020, remain confidential in their entirety because they contain financial information supplied in confidence to the Board of Directors of TO Live, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organizations. So moved by Paul Bernards. Further discussion? All those in favor? Contrary? Approved.
Can you just put that one back up, please, Carol?
Sure.
Could I see that motion one more time? I know we voted on.
We'll display that.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks.
And we have a motion for you on item 7.
Right. That the Board of Directors of TO Live, 1, approve 2021 operating facility fee reserve fund and state of good repair budgets with commentary as noted in attachment 1 to the report, August 18, 2020, from the President and Chief Executive Officer of TO Live. 2, direct that confidential attachment 1 and revised confidential attachment 1, September 3, 2020, to the report, August 18, 2020, from the President and Chief Executive Officer, TO Live, remain confidential in its entirety because it contains financial information supplied in confidence to the Board of Directors of TO Live, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organizations. Moved by Paul Bernards. Discussion. All those in favor? Contrary? Approved.
And there's only item 10 left, Mr. Chair.
Right. May I just make the motion, or do we need it up on the screen?
I think it's just a receive for information, so there's nothing to
Right.
display, yeah.
Okay. Move that the CT 1410 be received for information. Discussion. All those in favor? Contrary? Approved. Thank you. That concludes our meeting for today. Meeting adjourned. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.
I leave meeting. There we go.